Welcome, everyone. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you Derek Swanson, Chief Technology Officer at Silk. Derek, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Hi, Mark. Thanks a lot for the intro. Appreciate being here, and thanks for the time.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, just tell us in a few sentences about Silk and what you do.
So Silk is basically a database supercharger. It's a platform that we use to enable very important mission critical applications in the cloud. So we're cloud centric and we enable people to run their most important mission critical tier one applications in the cloud as effectively as possible.
Great, great. Well, we want to talk today about the cloud, and we want to talk about moving to the cloud and some of the nuances and complexities involved. Let's start at 40,000 feet. From your perspective, Derek, what are some of the business drivers behind moving the EHR to the cloud right now?
Well, as you know, everyone's looking to move their, all their applications to the cloud as much as possible. And this kind of transition or transformation, this digital transformation has been going on for some time. Speaking specifically around the medical industry, they've moved a lot of applications, but now they're looking at trying to move the really important mission critical ones, EMR, EHR specifically, to get the advantages of the cloud. And those advantages of the cloud are numerous. It enables you to change your financial model from kind of CapEx to OpEx. It enables you to move away from having to worry about data center operations. It helps you perhaps get better regulatory requirement compliance, et cetera, better data security around HIPAA, and of course, improving the new Cures Act, improving your access to the Cures Act, which was passed in 2016 to provide patients better access to their records, et cetera, et cetera. It also gives you more speed to innovation, what we call agility. It allows you to modernize your infrastructure and innovate faster. So there's a whole host of advantages that come with moving to the cloud and moving away from kind of traditional or legacy, what we call on-prem installations and solutions.
Where are we with that journey now at scale? Even a few years ago, there were some organizations that were hesitant to move their EHRs into the cloud. That seems to be dissipating. Kind of where are we overall industry-wise right now with that migration?
So I think what people have discovered is there's this hype cycle that gets implemented every time people look at a new technology, where there's a huge promise of what we can do. And then when we look at what's actually possible, when we get down into the bits and bytes of it, there's a whole bunch of things that pop up that have to be handled, right? You're talking about cost and the ability to move, and culture and skill sets and timing and risk that come into play. And nobody wants to be the first person. So some of the adoption has slowed down a little bit before we can really kind of solve these problems and give everyone a level of confidence that you can move your mission critical stuff to the cloud. This is how it's going to look. You'll have full reliability, availability, redundancy, full compliance with regulatory requirements. Security, of course, is a huge concern. So the promise, we're kind of past the promise stage, and now we're looking at the actual implementation. What do these solutions look like? How much are they going to cost? What is the length of the time it takes to make this transformation? Where are we in our journey? And where most people are right now is they moved a lot of the simple stuff, what we call tier 2 or tier 3 applications that are not mission critical, but still have quite a bit of use. But if they go down, or if they're compromised, or if they're not available, it's not the end of the world. So a lot of people have moved these secondary and tertiary applications that are still valuable, and that's kind of, they sort of dip their toe in the water, so to speak. Now that they've done that, they moved a lot of the easy stuff. They're really looking at, how do I move my mission critical stuff to the cloud to gain the rest of the advantages? Because they understand there are a lot of advantages in the cloud. Like I said, an OpEx model, I don't have to manage my hardware. I have kind of a uniform API to build to. I can unify my skill sets. I know what I need to hire to. It's becoming a very well-known paradigm now. But how do I get the really important stuff over there? That's kind of where we're at now. Is people have adopted the easy stuff, but the EMR and the EHR, the real mission critical stuff, that's what we're efforting now.
What are some things that people, in your experience, don't understand about making that transition and moving the EHR to the cloud? What are maybe some of the myths or just lacks of understanding out in the industry right now?
Yeah, I think it's the lack of understanding is really around what do they get from their current existing environments that they can get or can't get in the cloud. So some of the myths are, and these are propagated, of course, by vendors, because vendors a little bit notorious for slinging FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They say, oh, you could never do that, or you have to do it this way, or they put up some artificial barriers, and that would be around primarily costs and feature functionality, performance, resiliency, availability. So a lot of the things that the providers have been getting this on-prem. They've been getting very stable, solid, well-known environments on-prem, either in their own data centers or through a managed provider who's managing their own stuff in their own data center. They've been getting this for a long time, so they kind of know what they've been getting there. But moving to the cloud, they're like, can I get this feature functionality, performance, reliability, security, availability, all these things that I really have to have for the most important things? They're not quite certain that the cloud is able to deliver that, specifically around performance. And then of course, performance is always tied to cost. Can I get this much performance? Yes, but how much will it cost me? Can I get it in a cost-effective fashion? And is it going to be reliable enough where it's going to be up 6 nines basically all of the time? Those are some of the questions that we're answering now. And the misunderstandings is that, well, the cloud could never deliver the same experience that I can get on-prem. The answer is yes, it can. It can deliver that experience. Well, it could never do it at the price point I need. Well, today it can deliver it at the price point you need because of the advances in technology in the last few years. We've gotten to the point where cloud can deliver the same or even better performance that you're used to getting on premise with better governance, better unified experience, and a lot of the advantages that you do get with the cloud. So we've kind of bridged, I think we've kind of crossed that, what you might call across the Rubicon, to the point where it is possible to deliver the feature functionality and all of the other things you need tied together with an effective cost model around operational models rather than CapEx models. Today, it's available. You can get that today, whereas maybe even 2 or 3 years ago, you could not. But now you can. And honestly, the innovation around this has largely been driven, as people probably know, by the global pandemic. The pandemic has really forced people to move things to the cloud because of the advent of telemedicine, things that we've had before but weren't really in the forefront. Now, because of the demands that the global pandemic has put on remote access and things like that, it has really forced the cloud providers to massively upscale their infrastructure, their architecture, and these solutions to the point suddenly, and they did it very quickly. To their credit, in the last year and a half, there have been huge advantages that now we can build these tier 1 applications on top of, where maybe even 2 or 3 years ago was not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the complex subject of what are the actual challenges of shifting the EHR to the cloud.
So the primary challenges, I would say, primarily it's going to be performance. You need to architect your solution where, both for point of care, for EMR type stuff, and for patient record access, that needs to be very, very responsive. So you can't, click on something and wait a minute or two, or get some broken link, or it comes back and says the database is too busy. That's just simply not acceptable for an EHR or an EMR solution. So performance is the #1 challenge to work through. And performance is just a sizing exercise where we need to understand what your level of performance requirements are today, how that translates into the cloud today, and then of course look at your growth requirements over the next couple of years as well, and build in enough overhead so that we will support your peak workloads while ensuring that you can primarily be paying for an average workload. See, one of the challenges in IT, technically or traditionally, is that most people will architect for the average because of cost, but you still have to be able to support peak workloads. And the architecture you choose in the cloud needs to be flexible enough to support peak workloads, while still basically providing you a cost model and more around the average workload. So it needs to be very flexible. You don't want to have just one size built for this, because if it only supports average, whenever there's peaks, you'll have serious performance degradation, and that affects customer experience. And customer experience in healthcare is critical, especially around point of care solutions for EMRs. The point of the doctor's experience, what we're talking about is, time to response has to be immediate. It can't take forever. So that's number one. You need a platform that can deliver the performance you need on demand, a very flexible and agile one. So that would be probably the primary concern. And there's a few others as well.
Is it, when you talk to CIOs and CTOs at patient care organizations, hospitals, medical groups, and health systems, does that speak to their biggest concerns? What are their biggest concerns that they express to you?
Yeah, so that's not their biggest concern, because the C-suite is used to getting that level of performance. They kind of expect that they're going to get that. Their real concerns are around security, reliability, resiliency. Is this thing going to stay up? If I have an incident, like a security incident, if I have like a malware incident, how do I recover from that? Like, I need to be able to recover from a malware incident, like a ransomware incident. I need to be able to fully recover and be up and operational in less than 8 hours. How am I going to do that? What is the solution around that? And then regulatory compliance considerations. Those are probably their primary concerns on moving to the cloud. So we can address all of those as well and provide good solutions. When it comes to like technically, how are we going to move this? That's where the performance comes into play. Like, we know that we have to match and give them what they've been used to getting or better, but that's not the CXO's primary concerns. It's more around, like I said, resiliency, security, availability, responding to incidents, things like that. And then cost is a big consideration as well. Of course, cost is always a consideration when you talk about these big, very, very expensive solutions. So we need to be able to improve the cost model. And this is an advantage that the cloud brings. This is one of the main reasons why you sell the cloud. And the improvement in the cost is not so much that you're going to use less infrastructure or less hardware. It's just that the governance and your overall management and how you have to maintain it and upgrade it and keep it are going to be lower. You're going to have greater visibility into your utilization levels, how you're using it. You get better reports. And because the APIs are unified for the cloud, it's simpler to build, a skill set and a culture around using it, rather than having 100 disparate vendors with all these disparate parts, which is kind of traditional for on-prem. There's 50 different vendors that you kind of swizzle all together to make a solution. Well, in the cloud, the cloud provider is taking care of all of that underlying concern for you. So all you really have to worry about is how much resource your application is using, how efficient is it, and do you have a skill set around that particular one, what we call like a set of APIs, right? It's kind of your so you don't have to manage 50 different things. You can manage one thing. So it's efficiencies and in economy of scale and unification of governance and regulatory compliance. It all gets unified. So one of the big advantages you get in the cloud.
Are your conversations with CIOs changing now, either because of the pandemic or just over the last few years in general?
Yeah, absolutely. Two things have really driven this. It's they were all thinking about this before. The pandemic has really forced it to the forefront because of the advent of two things. One, telemedicine, which kind of exposed the limitations in remote patient care, honestly, especially at scale. It's like, I can handle 5 users. Can I handle 500 or 5,000? No, I can't. My system can't do it. It's not built for that. We never imagined that the level of scale that we would have to deal with today. The pandemic kind of brought that to the front. But they were already thinking about this. And the second thing is really, when I say the CXOs in the medical industry, the chief medical officer primarily, is thinking about expanding patient outcomes and expanding patient benefits. They want to move kind of away from the EMR model, which is focused on the doctor and the provider, more of an EHR, the electronic health care, the overall care, which is focused more on patient outcomes and patient satisfaction. And they want to build new solutions that are patient-centric, right? This is kind of the trend overall in the industry. Retail and all of these other guys have moved towards bespoke models for the individual consumer, healthcare and kind of education as well, but have lagged behind that. There's reasons for that, certainly inertia and all gravity and all of these things, but they want to provide a better patient experience. So
Yeah.
hospital and care settings are being designed and redesigned or rebuilt with the patient experience in mind, rather than just always focusing on the doctor. Like, how do we make this easier for the doctor? That's all EMR type stuff, focusing on point of care and outcomes. Now it's around new digital services, provider centric, moving to patient centric experience. So collaborative patient care across settings, and this is part of what the Cures Act is for. The patient has to be able to get immediate access to 8 separate categories of portable records that they can take to any provider anywhere. That's partly what the Cures Act is driving. That was in 2016, but now the pandemic is really forcing that to the forefront. New digital services, as patients traverse sites of care, data interoperability and harmonization. And one of the things the Cures Act said is, when you are creating a data set, you must have a way to port that data to another application written by someone else in a format that's understood. So it's easy for me to move a record from A to B to C to D. So this is all on the top of their mind now. They have to adopt new solutions and new packages that are patient-centric and give greater portability and visibility to the data. And then, of course, access to all of this, which is all telehealth, virtual care, mobile services. And, one of the big, the Apple guys and all the geniuses that invented the iPhone and whatnot, what they're talking about is turning your edge device, which is your phone or your iPad, kiosk or something, into this portable medical kiosk where it can, measure all of these different telemetry things from your own body and be able to report back immediately to doctors. And people are using that now for diabetic care and of course measuring heart rates and blood ox levels and things like that. So they want to take this edge device, which is great hardware, plug new software solutions into it to enable this kind of mobile care and telemedicine that we've been talking about for a while, but now it's starting to become the reality. So that's what the CXOs are talking about. When we talk to them, they want platforms that will enable this type of technology, and really to get there, the level of agility and global reach is something that only the cloud can provide. You can't do this with traditional on-prem things. You simply can't. They don't have the global access needed for this.
Yeah, let me ask you, Derek, I mean, you've referenced the term and the concept agility, and just now you basically described it. Why is agility important now? I mean, you partly said, but I'll have you elaborate a little bit. And do CIOs and CTOs understand how important agility is?
Yeah, so some of them do, and if they don't, they really need to understand this concept, because some of the more forward-facing customers, the more progressive customers we're dealing with, the healthcare facilities that are rebuilding their entire look, feel, and functionality with the customer experience in mind, understand that what the cloud is enabling them to do is move a lot of their operational capital, a lot of their money and time. They're moving it away from the old traditional ops to developing new projects. So one of our customers went from having, half a dozen, maybe 7 projects in their development pipeline at any time. They're now working on over 120 projects in the pipeline, because agility enables you to work on more things and iterate faster. So instead of you're taking all of this budget from the old model and plugging it into delivering new feature functionality, new applications, new programs for customers, the cloud is what enables the agility to do that. Because whenever you want to work on a new project, you can't just start working on it. You have to build the infrastructure to support that project. Well, that's what's really lagging, especially now with supply chain issues and whatnot. If I want to spin up a new project that's kind of heavy, I have to go get all the infrastructure to do that. Well, it's going to take me 6 to 9 months just to get the infrastructure delivered, never mind getting it set up and getting it ready. And then it might take me a year to do this project, honestly. In the cloud, the agility of the cloud means that I can stand this up in an existing development environment on the cloud very, very quickly, iterate against it very quickly, do all of my testing and DevOps and whatnot, and QA, and I just get 10 times the iteration cycles in the cloud. So that's really what agility means. And that's the model that is what most people outside of medical and education have realized. The cloud enables me to work on things that are going to improve my business and improve my, customer outcomes way, way faster than how I've been doing it. So that's what agility is.
Absolutely. And can you describe Silk's role in all of this? Where do you guys fit in?
Sure. So what Silk's role is, we are around performance, workflow, availability, reliability, resilience. We provide the underlying platform that enables you to run what we call tier one applications in the cloud, because one of the limitations of the cloud is around high-end performance. Now, I've mentioned tier one, tier two, tier three. The primary applications, the mission critical ones, are what we call tier one. These are the ones that use the most performance. They demand the most uptime, the most reliability, security, etc. These are the honestly, on-prem, these are multi-million-dollar solutions, usually with dedicated hardware that's very, very expensive. To get that same level of performance, resiliency, and to provide the outcomes you need, cloud native alone generally can't just by itself do that. So cloud is kind of built for the average. Tier one workloads are kind of for the peak. What Silk does, it's an invisible resilient layer that goes into cloud native. It's all just using normal cloud architecture and cloud infrastructure, so nothing proprietary about it. We go into the cloud, and our platform enables you to take these big EMR, EHR, and other types of applications and lift and shift them without having to rewrite them, without having to refactor them, because we know with EHRs, you can't really do that. It's not possible. You need to take it as is and move it into the cloud as is and still get all of the same things that you've been used to getting on-prem, or even better. So maintaining the same workflow, maintaining the same environments, the same way that you've been doing it in the past, giving you full DR capabilities, giving you full 6 nines reliability, giving you full security, but allow you to take advantage of the new cloud agility and OpEx and all of the cool things of the cloud. This is what we do. So we're an enablement tier to accelerate your cloud adoption, give you far better performance and resiliency than you would get with just kind of cloud native alone. That's what we do. So we're an enablement and an acceleration layer for these mission critical workloads like EHR.
Great, wonderful. So how do you see the next couple of years, next couple to few years shaking out as we move forward and more patient care organizations do shift into the cloud, including their EHRs? What will the landscape look like?
I think it's going to be transformational. It's going to be, this decade is what we call kind of cloud 2.0. So the first, like 2010 to 2020, most people were starting their cloud adoption, starting digital transformation, et cetera. And there have been a couple of industries that have wholeheartedly adopted it, retail, finance, et cetera, et cetera. And you've seen kind of the transformations in customer satisfaction, customer focus, all of the new things that have come out. It's amazing what we can do now on our phones. Think about what we could do on our phones 10 years ago, what we can do with them now. The whole paradigm, it's changed the way we live, right? It has changed the way we live. Now, as I've talked about it, there's a few sectors that have kind of lagged in adoption. Healthcare is certainly one of them. So healthcare now, the curve for adoption in healthcare this next 10 years is going to be what we've seen in retail and fintech and these other sectors over the last 5 years. We're going to see in massive adoption of the cloud, moving completely away from traditional legacy architectures to the new agile architectures that will deliver mobile and telemedicine and remote care, leveraging new edge devices. When I say edge devices, for 99% of the people out there, the edge device is their phone. That's going to enable these new technologies to be delivered right to them wherever they are, without them having to necessarily come into hospitals or make the big trip. And for a lot of people, especially in rural areas or less developed areas or less developed nations, because this is a global phenomenon, we're not just talking United States or Canada, this is a worldwide phenomenon. When they have access to a phone or remote kiosk or something like that, they're going to be able to have access to greatly, vastly improved medical care right at the time that they need it, breaking these old paradigms. So cloud adoption is going to completely transform patient care, and also the way payers interact, the way providers interact, the way doctors interact. It's going to be really transformational, I feel. It might not be in the next 2 to 3 years, because we're still getting people onto the architecture and getting people comfortable with the fundamentals of the architecture, which is performance, reliability, availability, security, and compliance. When we get to that point, you'll see it really take off. So by 2025 and beyond, it's going to be as amazing as the innovations that we've seen in fintech and retail and real estate and all of these other things in the last 5 years.
Wonderful. Any brief closing thoughts?
I'm excited for the future, especially in this space. I do feel that traditional patient care has been, let's say, it hasn't been as great as an experience as other things. So I'm really looking forward to this shift totally in the paradigm, both for the medical providers who are, and a lot of times, overworked, overstressed. It's been very, very tough on our amazing medical providers, practitioners, the work that they've done over the last few years. I think switching to these new paradigms is really going to help them deliver better solutions, which is what they want, right? The doctors and the nurses and the administrators want to provide better care, a better experience with lower price points. They want to bend the cost curves down. Moving to the cloud will enable them to do that. Customers want to have better access to timely care that's relevant to them, with the knowledge that they can move it where they want and it's going to be secure. So I'm really, really excited to get there, and I'm happy that Silk is going to play a big role in this, enabling these different EHRs and EMRs that are mission critical and are very what we call heavy, require a lot of these infrastructure things that are difficult to deliver. Silk's going to enable doing that. So being a part of that, I'm very excited about all of that.
That's wonderful. I think there's a lot to be excited for in the future. And I really appreciate your insights today. Thank you so much, Derek.
Thanks so much, Mark. I really appreciate the conversation. So thanks for the time.
Absolutely. And thank you to you and our audience for viewing this session. This session is concluded. Have a great day.